Welcome to the Making College Affordable podcast with me, Jason Fleury, certified financial planner professional and college planning specialist. I'm about to show you the inside secrets colleges don't want you to know and help you become a more educated consumer when it comes to paying for college. I believe you should enjoy the journey of allowing your kids to pursue their dreams without having to sacrifice yours. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do. So let's get started. Hey there, and welcome everybody to episode number 12 of the Making College Affordable podcast. I'm Jason Fleury, and I'm thrilled to be back with you to share more of the game-changing experiences and expertise that I've learned over the past 20 plus years as a certified financial planner professional and college planning specialist. Now today, I'm going to be talking all about recommenders and teach you everything you need to know about how to get a winning recommendation for your college applications. See, almost every college application these days requires at least one recommendation, and it's usually from a counselor who, depending on your high school size, may or may not even know you very well. It's unfortunate for the counselor and for the student that this type of recommendation is needed because it often puts both parties at a big disadvantage. Yet it seems like the student is the only one that really suffers from a less than personalized recommendation. Now, before you think that this is going to be an episode where I'm hating on counselors, let me say this. I would never want to be in their shoes during application season. They're usually outnumbered sometimes as badly as 500 or 600 to 1 based on their student-to-counselor ratio. And filling out student recommendations for college is just one of the many things that they're responsible for on a daily basis. There's just no way the typical high school counselor can give each student the personal attention that they'd like and still cover all of the bases that their job requires. So before you get too discouraged that your counselor won't be able to give you a good recommendation because they're either overworked or unfamiliar with you personally, or in some cases both, let me give you some recommendations on how to get a good recommendation from your counselor and from other people too. Knowing these strategies will help you help them to work through the clutter and to get you the best, most glowing recommendations possible. So let's go back just a minute. In episodes 7 and 8 of this podcast, I taught you my pro tips on how to design a remarkable resume. And it's time to revisit it again now that you're ready to ask for recommendations. Some high schools ask students to complete a survey or a profile, detailing all the activities and awards that they've won during high school, and to also answer questions about what that student's interests, abilities, and values are. All of that information goes to the counselor so that he or she can get a feel for who each student is and for what kinds of things they're involved with outside the classroom. Now, a good bit of the information you'll need to complete a form like this is already listed on your resume. So having one ready to go can save you a ton of time and help you give the counselor more of what they need to complete your recommendations quickly. Whenever possible, also include a copy of your resume with the survey so that they can see the extra effort you've made to stand out from your peers. And in situations where there is no survey to complete, and maybe in situations where your counselor already knows you pretty well, handing them a polished copy of your resume still makes a positive impression that'll certainly help create a good vibe in their minds. That can't hurt you, and since you've built it for the colleges already, it doesn't even require any extra work on your part either. So I've taken you back to episodes 7 and 8 where we talked about the resume. Let's go all the way back to the very first episode of this podcast and let me dust off a few things here that very few people know about. It's called the common data set. Now I won't go into any detail about it here since you can listen to it on your own later. But here's why knowing about it is helpful with your recommendations. Counselors and other recommenders, like teachers for example, get asked to submit recommendations all the time, year after year. And so they have some template kind of phrases and lines that they usually use for different kinds of students. But while they can be helpful, you want to encourage your recommenders to break the script and write you a personalized recommendation. Knowing what each college wants in an ideal applicant, the stuff they tell you in the common data set, gives you the insight to approach your recommenders and ask them if they will mention any specific instances where they've seen you demonstrate the traits that your colleges desire most. Now think about it. If your top colleges value strong character, leadership experience, and a good academic track record, having your recommendation go from Elizabeth is a strong student and a great fit for your university to Elizabeth has always demonstrated a good work ethic, a positive attitude, a desire to lead and help others, and a consistent commitment to excellence in everything she's done, both in her classes and in her activities outside of school. Letting your recommenders know what your colleges are looking for gives them an opportunity to highlight those areas like this, and thereby give you an advantage that will help you stand out with your recommendations. Well, so far I've only talked about your high school counselor. If anybody's required to submit a recommendation on your behalf, it's probably going to have to be a counselor. But counselors aren't the only ones who can submit recommendations, and here's a few other people you might want to consider when thinking of recommenders. Teachers can make good recommenders, and they don't necessarily have to teach the classes where the students got the highest grades. In situations where the student maybe had some challenges to overcome and managed to work through them, well, they've earned the respect of that teacher. And now that person can make for a good recommender and speak to different aspects of that student's character and potential for success in college. Other people at the school can make for good recommenders too. If you're involved in sports, ask your coach for a recommendation. If you're in debate or if you're involved in music or drama, well, ask your coaches or directors for their recommendations too. If you know the principal or other faculty leaders at your school, ask them for recommendations. All of these people see you often, and they know you well. They also want to help, so don't be afraid to ask them for it. Students spend a lot of time at school, but there are other people who can be a strong voice for them outside of school too. Coaches, bosses, leaders of organizations where they volunteer, people at church, and other influential people within your community who know your family can all be great recommenders. Don't only select people with titles, but do try to find people with prestigious titles whenever you can, as long as their position makes sense in the context of your overall application. So like having a college buddy of your parents who just happens to be the mayor of a town 100 miles away, if he writes you a recommendation, it probably doesn't carry as much weight as having the president of your local bank where your family has been all these years and where you opened your first savings account when you got your first job. Having that person speak highly of you is likely to be more effective. Vary your recommenders based on who knows you from different angles and from the different activities you've been involved in through the years. And always give them a copy of your updated resume so that they can see just how accomplished you are in the other areas of your life that they may not be familiar with, just like you did with your counselor, right? What you'll find is that some colleges only want 1, maybe 2 recommendations, but others will require some and still accept others. So make sure that you have your required recommenders handled, but also look to see if you can add others too. The more the merrier, and the more momentum you get from having more than what's required. Successful people do more than what's required, and taking this extra step demonstrates that. Your efforts are also enhanced by the tailored approach that you took in asking your recommenders to address specific areas of your character and experiences. So not only do you have more recommendations than others, the quality of each recommendation is better too. How can anyone at the college not love that? Let's talk about deadlines for a minute. You'll find posted deadlines on your college's applications, and they are important, so abide by them. In fact, for our private clients, we try to stay at least 2 weeks ahead of any real deadline so they aren't so stressed and so that the people who will be receiving their applications aren't so stressed either. But always remember, those deadlines are your deadlines for the student. They are not your recommenders' deadlines. Usually colleges will give recommenders a little longer to get everything into them, like maybe a week or 2 after the student's deadline has passed. You want to identify your recommenders early and ask them for recommendations early. But if for some reason they procrastinate, you can still be okay with the colleges. It's hard to track when recommenders send in your recommendations, but here's what we advise our private clients to do to stay in the loop. When you ask your recommenders for their recommendation, write out the instructions they'll need to follow, and at the end, mention that you'd appreciate it if they would text you or to email you when they've submitted everything so that you can make sure that the college has got it. Taking this approach does 2 things. First, it puts a little bit of accountability on the person recommending you to actually follow through with your recommendation. There have been numerous articles written over the years about counselors never sending in students' recommendations. Individuals can also mean well, but forget to follow through with their recommendations too. Having them be aware that you're waiting to hear from them when they're finished puts them on the line a little bit more to do what they said they were going to do for you. The other reason you want them to contact you when they've submitted everything so that you can, quote, make sure your college received everything. Now, you may or may not be able to tell that for sure, but if they sent it, most of the time the college will receive it. What's more important with this step is the prompt that their notification gives you to write them a personal, handwritten thank you note. Now, I didn't say text or email them. Write a heartfelt, handwritten thank you card and put it in the mail. See, there are these little sticky things called stamps that go on the envelope. You can find them for sale at the post office. And yes, people still do appreciate getting cards in the mail. So don't leave this part out. It's important, and finishing the process with this personal touch is a classy move that just reaffirms how worthy you were of the recommendation they made on your behalf. See, getting great recommendations can help give you an upper hand against the competition when it comes to getting into the colleges of your dreams. Follow the steps that I've given you here, and you'll be ahead of the pack for sure. But also remember that the process doesn't stop here. Your counselor will still be sending in mid-year reports with grades and other comments after the fall semester ends. He or she will also be sending a report with all final grades and any other comments that they feel the college should know at the end of the school year too. Finish well and do whatever you can to continually improve your reputation leading up to graduation and beyond. And here's one more thing that's worth mentioning. People like closure on things. So when you hear back from the colleges where people recommended you, let them know an update. Thank them for recommending you and let them know what your final decision is on where you plan to attend. Having them feel like they played a part in your success is rewarding for them, and it's a smart move on your part too. So good luck with your recommendations and with your applications. Get them in early and make them look good. Over the last month or so, I've been talking a lot about the application process, and I've been sharing with you some of the essential insights that we've found to be the most effective in working with colleges all across the country. Now, I didn't learn these things overnight or by reading a book or going to a seminar. I also didn't become a college planning specialist just because I opened an office, hosted some workshops at the library or at the high school, and called myself a, quote, specialist. Some people do that, and it confuses families who really need help making college affordable. So in my next episode, I'm going to pull back the curtain, and I'm going to share with you 5 levels of college advisors. I'll show you what each one is good for, and I'll show you the negative side of each one too, so that you'll have a true picture of what you're getting at each level. Like I often say, no one else will ever show you this, but I will, so don't miss next week's episode. It can be a game changer for you and your family, and I can't wait to share it with you. I hope you've enjoyed and benefited from today's show. If you like what you've heard, please give us a good rating wherever you get your podcasts and share us with your friends. Also, if you have any specific questions or comments about anything we've covered today, email those questions to podcast@mycollegeplanners.com. You can also visit our website at mycollegeplanners.com to get personalized recommendations on how to make college more affordable and learn how working with a college planning specialist can improve your life. Thanks again for listening today. I look forward to seeing you again soon.